Hello, everyone. Welcome to Follow Everton. I've got John with me, who's on holiday at the moment, and we're looking to react to the breaking news that Everton have received a £60 million bid from Chelsea for winger Anthony Gordon. And also, Dele Ali is leaving for Besiktas. He's not involved tonight. And that Everton have bid £30 million for Joao Pedro at Watford. John, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you, Ryan?
I'm not too bad. I'd much rather be abroad enjoying the sun. You've got a great tan at the moment, John.
Thank you. Yeah, loving it.
But you can't stay away from Everton, can you, wherever you are? And it's hard not to get drawn into such big news, such as Anthony Gordon's potential move. Now, this is one that's not going to go down too well with everyone. But certainly when it comes down to that kind of money, it's difficult to see how Everton can refuse £60 million of pure profit for a player that's yet to really reach the upper echelons of the Premier League in terms of statistics.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's got a lot of potential, but he's obviously shown a lot of skill for us, and he's a great asset to the team. However, if you think about it, we sold Richarlison for 55 odd million, and he was our top goal scorer of last season. So to have a player that we could sell for 60 million, who is yet to really prove himself, especially in against the big top teams. That's a big bid for us to turn down. And think about what we could get for 60 million. Obviously, we're in the hunt for a striker and more forward players. And obviously, he is a big part of our forward force. But if we had 60 million to spend on other strikers and Lampard bringing them in, then that would be a huge monetary asset for us to have. Obviously, I do like Gordon. I think he is a good player. But 60 million for a player who's very young, still has a lot to prove. I think that's a huge bid for the likes of Gordon.
Thanks, John. I mean, I think it is mixed emotions because we can all accept that we like Anthony Gordon. We love Anthony Gordon, and we think he's got a big future ahead of him, whether that's at Everton or at Chelsea or another club. The issue is Everton can't spend any money. And you look at that squad, and with Dele Alli going now to potentially save us some money, we're left with just McNeil, who for me was a strange sign. I think it was a case of who was there, not who we needed. Solomon Rondon, who went to China and his career was on a massive slope and came back because he's Rafa's mate. Excuse me. The other player we've been left with, someone's ringing me mid-thing. I'm just having to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Rondon, McNeil, and Damari Gray. So that's who we'd be left with, John. You know, you're losing Dele Alli, you're losing Anthony Gordon. As Phil Mitchell said on EastEnders, we've got nothing left. You can't even rotate players tonight.
It's a struggle as it is now. And the other day we were talking about how desperate we are for a striker and to keep our forward players. And if one of them gets injured, I'm not even saying that Rondon or McNeil have even proved themselves or they're really worth something, because let's face it, they're no Richarlison. They won't be scoring our 10 goals a season, 20 goals that we need. So we'd be left really with the absolute bare minimum, which we're at now. So to lose another player with skill and that actually gives us something moving forward, that would be a real blow to the team. But can you really turn down 60 million for a player that is yet to sort of prove himself? Obviously, at Everton, I think he's very popular amongst the fans and the team. But can you really turn down 60 million for a player that might not even go on to really reach the top of his game? And especially at Everton, does he have the right development skills there to be this next best thing? So if we were to get 60 million for him and be able to sign other players who have either proven themselves or to pay the wages of someone that we could really fit into our team very well, can you really turn it down?
I mean, it's complex. I don't think it's so straightforward. There's plenty of elements to this deal. So one of them is, okay, 60 million. Will he be worth more than 60 million if he goes on to achieve what we think he will? Or mightn't Everton ever get a £60 million bid again? Is it possible that he doesn't reach that potential and just goes to Chelsea, is on the bench, he doesn't score goals because he hasn't got that natural goal scoring instinct there? maybe it can be coached. I think I've lost John for a moment, but it's one of those things, isn't it? So you look at the potential of that side of it. Then the other element of the deal is, can Everton get the replacement in that they need when they haven't even replaced Richarlison, when they haven't position for DCL, when they haven't signed a defensive midfielder to plug that gap in front of the back at 4 or 5, and brought in the creativity to replace Sigurdsson. So the concern is that we wouldn't spend well, and then the clubs that we are looking to buy players off know we've now got 60, 70, 80 million, because I imagine there was still some budget left in the coffers. And my basis on that is we bid 25 million cash for Morgan Gibbs-White. So there is a budget there. Can it be spent in 8 days effectively or 9 days effectively? I'm not so sure. Are the clubs going to try and rinse us dry? Possibly. The reality is 60 million for a club in our position, pure profit, should in theory allow us to go and say, right, Martin Terrier in France. There were some other names I was looking at, Jonathan David, some really good players in France and Italy and Spain who are not at the top clubs like Barcelona or Madrid or PSG, who would potentially be open to a move to England where you get more money and etc. etc.
I think the thing is, though,
10
60 million, obviously it is so much money, but this season we sold Richarlison, we've sorted out our financial fair play problems. So realistically, we do have money to spend. And if you look at the net profit and loss of this season of spendings, Everton are actually about 10 million in profit. So it's as if we've got all our new signings, Connor Cody, Tarkowski, McNeil, all these players have either come in for a very low amount, or it's just come out of the spendings of what we had for Richarlison, the profit. So if you think about it, I think I'd rather have Gordon as a player. And yeah, maybe we don't go on to sell him for 60 million in the future. But if we have him as a player and he is a good asset to the team going forward, we should still, in theory, be able to sign new players and strikers and build on the team as opposed to needing to sell Gordon. So I think I'd rather keep him. And he plays well in our team. So he gives a lot and he plays for the shirt. So I think instead of selling him for 60 million, which is obviously a huge amount of money, and we could go on to buy a lot of players, we can spend money and get those players without having to sell and make our squad weaker.
I see you've kind of done a U-turn there, John, but the reality is Anthony Gordon, this sort of bid doesn't come in unless the player has indicated that he's interested in a move. It doesn't develop. The first bid happens, the player's agent says to Chelsea, my client isn't interested in a move to Chelsea, and it ends there. So there is obviously an intent from the player side to go. And if that's the case, Everton shouldn't stand in his way. Now, in theory, 60 million should allow you to put £10 million down payment on 4, 5, 6 players. It should allow us to go and spend and say, right, I'm having Dele at Leon. We'll give you 10 million up front. We'll give you 5 million every season for the next, 4 seasons or whatever. And we're having months to come. That's the sort of thing we need to be doing. I am gutted about him going potentially. Because I think he's a big prospect for us, and it's a shame that we can't hold on to anyone. But I have to look at this pragmatically and think every player has a price. Do you want to sell him now? But can we afford to turn down that money? Absolutely not. And ultimately, it's the player's decision. John, also, we're going to go to the comments. Then I'm going to ask you about Dele Alli and about Joao Pedro. I know you don't know an awful lot about Joao, but I don't think any of us do really. But I'll give you the lowdown.
I've actually got to head off soon, but I'll give you my quick thoughts on Dele leaving before I head off. I think I said this yesterday in the Fleetwood preview. I don't think Dele Alli has really shown anything of note or anything of value for Everton in the games that he's played in. I think he's just a player on the pitch and he's taking up space. I think since his days at Spurs, obviously he was a very talented player, but since then he's shown nothing and he's been very poor. So I'm not sad about him leaving. I think he's a drain on funds, really. Obviously, the weekly wages. And if we can get a bit of money for him, then that's fine. But again, we do need a player that's playing in his position with quality. Because since we've got rid of Sigurdsson, or the case of Sigurdsson, and since we've got rid of Rodriguez, I think or Rooney, we're missing that creativity going forward and sending that long ball up there or the vision that we need. I think we've been lacking in recently. So I would like to see Dele Alli replaced and bring in a player of quality to be able to do the job that he hasn't been doing.
It's mad that we're even thinking about this. You know, you're getting rid of Dele Alli and you're getting rid of Gordon. We've already lost Richarlison. Calvert-Lewin can't stay fit. Cenk Tosun left. A whole host of other players have gone. The squad is extremely thin. You know, it's a sheet of paper at best. And, you know, you're looking at this with 8-9 days until the window closes and thinking, how the hell are we going to get players in? But if
Yes,
the
we
money's
need
there, we
multiple
have
players in.
to
It's very difficult and frustrating because realistically, what are we going to do if we get rid of all our forward players? We're going to have to start playing Pickford up front, most assists this season. But
we
it's
can
very
rotate,
worrying.
John. We
Right?
physically haven't got anyone we can bring in.
Well, Ismail Assar turned down the deal for Villa, so he could be a potential option as well. He's
But
had some,
it's
but
another striking option in a poor Watford team.
it is, but maybe he gels better in a different team. And Watford obviously have gone down. So to come into a team where you've got some support around you, it's just another option as a striker. And we, as you say, we're so thin at the moment. People were saying yesterday in the comments about, oh, should we play a second team against Fleetwood? But we haven't even got a first team like that's full and fit. Never mind a second team, and we've literally got no options to play up front. So we
Yeah.
desperately find people.
Well, that's it, John. I'll continue the stream for a little bit later. Thanks for giving us your input.
Make sure you like and subscribe. Always appreciated. Have a good one, guys.
Enjoy. See you, John. So it's just me for the time being. I'm going to look at some of the comments in a moment, but I think the Anthony Gordon situation is, as I say, it's not so black and white. On one hand, you're thinking you don't want to sell your best young players, you don't want to sell your young prospects with a high ceiling. At the same time, can Everton refuse a bid of 60 million potentially from Chelsea, knowing that that's pure profit and what that could potentially do in terms of us signing other players? Um, it's a really difficult scenario. I think ultimately it comes down to whether Anthony Gordon wants to leave. If he wants to go, we've got to facilitate the move. If he wants to stay, you know, we can't force him to go regardless of what offer comes in. So we just have to wait and see how this one plays out. But the reality is we need answers now because I think Everton's shopping list is already quite stretched. Um, we were close to signing Idrissa Gueye. I don't know what's going on with that. That was meant to be done. That was 2-3 weeks ago. That seems to have gone really quiet. You could argue Dele was to replace Sigurdsson, but hasn't done it, and now he's going. We need another creative player who can take corners, take set pieces, take penalties, and try and cut teams open because ultimately we've lost James Rodriguez, Richarlison, Luka Dean, and Sigurdsson in the space of 18 months, and we've got no creativity. And then you're saying we need another striker as competition for DCL, who can't stay fit, and replace Richarlison. So you're already looking at 4 players before we've sold Anthony Gordon. So I am worried. I'm not going to lie. We haven't got the squad. We haven't got the attacking options, and that's 5 players now that we potentially need. And I don't want to bring in players for the sake of it. I want us to go and sign players who are going to improve us, not just in the short term, but also in the long term, and not make the same rushed mistakes that we've done previously. I'm going to look at some of the comments here now. I'm a little bit tired. I haven't been on a lot of the streams recently, as you'll know, but I'm hoping to be more active on the channel in the coming days and weeks. PMAC is saying, do you trust the board to spend the dough wisely? To be honest with you, I'm not sure, because the reason I get worked up about this is because it doesn't seem that we're cherry picking players from other clubs. It seems like we're just looking to see who's free. The Conor Cody one, he became surplus at Wolves. Vinagre, surplus in Portugal. Tarkovsky was on a free in a poor relegated team. McNeil, the same, just relegated in a poor team. And I don't know where the vision is. I know we brought in Onana, paid a lot of money for him. I think that's potentially a good signing. We don't know. We've got to give him time to bed in. I didn't think he played well against Nottingham Forest, but give him time, and I think he could settle into being a good player. I didn't like the transfers we made in January. So obviously we've got the director of football in. We've got to give him a bit of patience. I hope we'll be able to get the names in. I think there's players out there. As I say, someone like Tammy Abraham at Roma, would he come back to the Premier League if we offered big money for him? There's players out there. Ivan Toney at Brentford as well, another name. I just want to see us being a little bit more ambitious with some of the targets and improve this team. But ultimately, no, I don't know. I don't know, Maka. Keith is saying he'd snap the hand off for 60 million. He's not worth 30. I mean, I think that's a good point, really. At the moment, if you were just looking as if he was an established player now, Anthony Gordon, and he was sort of 26, 27, 28, you'd say he's nowhere near worth 60 million. But they're basing it on his potential, because I personally think he's got everything but a real sort of finishing end product. And to some extent, I don't know whether that can be coached. I think that's something you've either got or you haven't got. And I don't know whether Anthony Gordon has got that. So, yeah. They're bidding on potential, but as Dave Weston goes on to say here, he thinks it would be a bad move for the player. And he says, personally, I think it would be a bad move for the player. I also think he can't turn down that kind of money for him. He'd be better at staying at Everton for a couple of years and letting us trade at us and guaranteed weekly football. If he reaches potential, we can still sell him at a higher price. Or it could go the other way and we never reach his potential and we never get that kind of money again for him, Dave. So that's why it's difficult. And I do trust that the right decision will be made. Do I think it's a good move for Anthony Gordon? If he's just going to go and sit on the bench at Chelsea, a club that always chases the top elite names, then I don't know whether it is, because I imagine he wants to play regular football. You go from Everton playing week in, week out to Chelsea, where the expectation's even higher, where they, fighting for trophies, something Everton unfortunately aren't doing anymore. Is he just going to sit on the bench at Chelsea? Is he really going to start for them? I'm not sure. Is he going to earn a lot of money? Yes. Is he going to be part of something where they are going to win and be more successful? Probably. So I can understand that aspect. But if he's going for regular football, I'm not sure he's going to play week in, week out. I don't think he's good enough. And that's what Phil's saying. Snap their hand off. Sorry, clicking on the wrong one. Snap their hand off. And Brendan's saying, I think 60 million for Gordon's a no-brainer. I'd go for Barrett and Diaz. The thing with this Diaz is just another name people are making up on social media, and then the media have caught onto it. I don't believe there's a genuine interest in there. Joao Pedro will come on to. David is saying, as a 60 million bid being made. Well, that's according to Sky Sports and other sources. Louis is saying, you think with all the new people behind the scenes we'd brought in, we'd be able to improve the squad early. Chris is saying selling Gordon's not great, but we need a striker more. D is saying 60 million, he's not worth 30, but it'll be a terrible move for him. And Everything Everton, good afternoon, saying I'd cash in on him and reinvest in the team. Desperately need goals inside. These are great comments. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm also going to touch on the other news. Dele Alli is off to Besiktas. He's not involved with the team tonight for Fleetwood, and he was only on the bench against Nottingham Forest out of complete desperation. I also don't know what's happened with the Mohamed Kudus deal. It looked to be wrapped up. We did do a video on him as if he was signing last week, got to over 2,000 views. That doesn't look like that's happening. He played for Ajax on the weekend, came off the bench and played very well, apparently. So Dele gone saves us 10 million to Spurs. If he'd made another 7 appearances, we would have had to pay them a bit of money. He's also on 100 grand a week. I think the Dele one is contentious because he's never had an opportunity to play as a number 10 or as a second striker up with Calvert-Lewin or in positions where he can really affect the game. He's always been very deep or playing off the left. And I think we've not given him the chance to do that. And if that is down to the fact that he hasn't been good enough in training, then fair enough. You can't argue with Lampard. If he thinks Dele Alli hasn't done enough in training to justify starting, then fine. Fair enough. But ultimately, he hasn't been given a chance in his preferred position where I think he could have that impact and could have that effect on games. And so he was never going to look that good, in my opinion. He's never been a deep-lying playmaker. He's never been a left winger. He's always been a second striker. He's always been a number 10. So personally, I think it's unfortunate, but needs must. He's on big wages. He hasn't scored. He hasn't cut the mustard really from what we've seen. Do you expect him to in those positions? No. Would I expect him to in a number 10? I'm not so sure because at Spurs he was struggling. I think personally the player is finished, and it's a good bit of business getting rid of him. I want to know what people think about that. Are they happy to see Dele Alli leave? Louis now saying Dele's set to be featured tonight. Well, the Athletic were reporting before we came on here that he was going. Phil saying Dele has ruined his career. Turkish football's like going to America. Jack the Lad, hi Jack. You're saying people talk crap about Dele, but look at Kane's stats since 2015 when Dele joined them. And the thing is, he's finished. What I mean by finished, Jack, is that he's not done anything for years. You know, he hasn't scored a goal, I don't think, since 2019. You know, it's 2022. He was at the top of his game. He was talking about going to Real Madrid for 100 million at one point. You know, he's come to Everton on a downward spiral. Lampard said in his press conference before the Nottingham Forest game, when asked about him, that he didn't know Dele Alli. The way I felt it came across was that he's got some personal problems, and that and when he was asked whether he'd like to keep Dele Alli, Lampard didn't seem that arsed, didn't seem that bothered. So, you know, you have to trust Lampard, and a player who's played with very good players throughout his career should be able to identify a player with a good attitude and good quality. So I think, you know, he's on his way out. He's on his way down in his career. And, you know, I don't see a way back for Dele Alli, really, certainly at Everton. If you're new to the channel, I'm Ryan. I'm the channel host and admin here. Make sure you like and subscribe. Give us a subscribe. Turn the notifications on because a lot of these videos are going to be quite impromptu like today. This wasn't planned. This was just on the fly. I asked John if he wanted to come on for 10 minutes with me. And I'm sticking on for a little bit longer with you guys. So if you've got anything you want to say, anything you want to touch upon or talk about, I'm happy to address. Other news today, Joao Pedro at Watford. Of course, he's at Watford. Newcastle have a bid accepted. I believe that was £30 million, including add-ons. And the talkers at Everton have indicated to Watford they'll be willing to match that bid. And I think Joao Pedro at 20, potentially looking at the footsteps of Richarlison and the way his career has gone. I don't know an awful lot about Joao Pedro, I'll be honest with you, because I didn't watch a lot of Watford last season. And when I did watch them, I thought they were terrible. And he was up front with Emmanuel Dennis, who got more of the goals and went for a lot less than they're asking for Joao Pedro. And also up front with Ismail Sarr, who was set to join Aston Villa, but Steven Gerrard pulled a veto on the deal late on, had second thoughts and said, no, I don't actually want him. So he was a member of a really poor front three at Watford, Joao Pedro. He only got 3 goals in the league last season. And obviously Watford got relegated. They were the worst, you know, second worst team in the league, along with Norwich. Now, there's 2 things to this. I'm frustrated and I'm infuriated that Everton can't look further than the end of their noses when it comes to recruitment. Why are we always looking at players from the relegated teams? Why is there no thought behind, we need a player of this characteristic, where can we get him, where is he and how much does he cost, and we'll try and sign him? Why is it like, oh, well, they've been relegated, they're getting rid of him, let's go and get him? Happened with McNeil. And I don't know with Joao Pedro, because I think he's regarded as a player with big potential. 20 years of age, plays up front, but didn't score a lot of goals last season. And I think the position we're in right now, we need players for the now, because if Dele Alli goes and Anthony Gordon goes and we don't sign anyone, we're down this season. I've got no doubt about it. We're playing this 5 at the back formation, which hampers, I think, us offensively. Whether that provides a little bit more defensive solidity, I'll leave that for you to decide, because we've still conceded goals, even with that. But the reason I say we'd be relegated is because we haven't got any goal scorers in the team, in any position. Calvert-Lewin, yes, scores goals, but he scored 13 goals a couple of seasons ago. Then he had a good season. And since then, he can't stay fit, injury after injury. So can you rely on him? And even if he does stay fit, what would you expect him to get for a full season? 15 goals? 15 Premier League goals? So then you're left with Damari Gray. You'd expect him to get 4 or 5 goals. Andros Townsend is out till January. And then you've lost Anthony Gordon. Dwight McNeil last season played pretty much every game for Burnley and didn't score. So if I was being ambitious, I'd say he'd get 3 or 4 goals this season. Where are the goals coming from? Are they coming from midfield? Well, you've got Tom Davis, who's got 6 goals in his Everton career in the league. I think it's over 100 games. Decore's out for 3 weeks, but he hasn't really scored. I think he scored 2 or 3 each season. Andre Gomez, way off it. Don't know where he is now. He hasn't scored or assisted last season. You've also got, sorry, I don't know, want to clarify, I don't know whether he has assisted or not, but he didn't score last season in the league. Alan doesn't assist or score. Gabamin doesn't play, nor assist, nor score. Where are the goals coming from? Can we afford to stay, right, we're going to spend 30 million on Joao Pedro and take a punt on him? You know, even Iwobi, James has alluded to here. James, hi. He's saying Iwobi is playing great, and he is, and he's looking more mobile, more tenacious, and more in control of defensive situations than any of our defensive midfielders last season. But he doesn't score or assist either, and you could argue that's why he has to play as a central midfielder, because there's less necessity on him to score when he's playing in that position as opposed to when he's playing on the wings. Everything Everton's saying, Tom Cannon, I'm not quite sure he's ready for the first team and to put that level of pressure on. Rob is saying about Diaz at Blackburn, they only want 15 million for him, because why would we pay 15 million for a championship striker who's on a free next season? I think we've got more of a negotiating stance with him there, considering he wants out. And Che Adams, I think, yes, he did score 2 goals last weekend, but really, is he going to get 15 to 20 goals this season? Because the problem I've got is even if we get a 15 to 20 goal season striker, you've got no goals from anywhere else. You need 3 players in there who are going to get 10 to 15 goals, or a couple of midfielders who are going to get 8 goals. Now, for me personally, I'd look at someone like Tammy Abraham at Roma, Dembele at Lyon. He's an out-and-out goal scorer. Martin Terrier as well has been linked at Stade Rennais. He's done really well last season. Ivan Toney at Brentford has proven he can score at Premier League level and would lead the line well for us. So there's a few options there. But ultimately, I think we need 3 or 4 players. For me, I would get Conor Gallagher at Chelsea. I'd be saying, look, we'll let you have Anthony Gordon for 50 million plus 10 million add-ons, but we want Conor Gallagher on loan with an option to buy for 30 million, for example, because I think he will get 8 goals from midfield for us. And then I think you need 2 wingers and a goal scorer who are going to score. But look, we've talked about it. We need a CDM. We need a creative midfielder. We need a striker to compete with DCL. We need to replace Richarlison. And now we're going to need to replace Anthony Gordon. It's a lot of stuff to do. It's a lot of recruitment to do in such a short space of time. So ultimately, not all of those deals are going to get done. And I really think if we don't get the forward players in, I don't know where the goals are coming from. Let us know in the comments, what do you think? Where are the goals coming from? Who do you want to see as Everton? Who do you want to see us sign? And are you happy with the Anthony Gordon deal? And are you happy with the Dele Alli deal? And are you happy with potential move for Joao Pedro? I know there's 60 of you watching. Thanks for coming on this afternoon. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. It costs absolutely nothing. And we've got an amazing array of people on the channel. Yandelf, Dan, Basil, Stevie, John, Jeff, new to the channel. So make sure you like and subscribe. Jetty Rich Jones is saying, sound like we need Jesus, both the striker and the Messiah. We need someone to pull a rabbit out of the hat now in the next 9 days. And I always say quality over quantity. I don't want to see us go and get stopgap players. I want us going to see players with potential, players who can cut it now in the league. And look in these European leagues where France, for example, the players don't earn anywhere near as much. The level of competition in terms of actually winning anything is difficult because PSG and arguably Lille win everything there. So there's got to be clubs out there who need the money, who've got top talent, who we can go and sign without having to say, right, we need to give you 30, 40 million up front. We can give you this much up front, and we can, over a stack of deals. And I think some of the names we've been linked with, particularly in the striker search, are pretty shit. Sorry for swearing, but really, to be honest with you, championship players and cast-offs at other teams, and not really what we need right now to come in and get this team functioning. Because I'll be honest with you, I did watch the Nottingham Forest game back. I watched the full 90 again. And I felt like maybe when I did my post-match reaction, I overreacted because I was at the game and I was fed up. I was wound up. I was emotional about the whole thing and I was stressed, I suppose. But watching back, I thought we were okay. And I think with better finishing, we win that game comfortably. But Nottingham Forest are one of the worst teams in the league, on paper. We're going to have a lot more difficult tests than them. And we've got to get the strikers in. I felt like against Forest, if we'd have had a number 9, if we'd have had a focal point and a goal scorer in the team, we'd have beaten them. If we'd ever had Richarlison in the team, we'd have won. If we'd have had Calvert-Lewin fit, I'm sure we would have beaten them. Chris is saying big win tonight, a new striker could help our league form. Well, I think, Chris, the issue is we haven't got a striker. The whole team then becomes dysfunctional. And I think if you have players in the right positions and you bring in the right personnel, a defensive midfielder and a striker, and allow everyone else to do their job properly, we will be fine this season. But at the moment, as it stands, with the players leaving and the lack of recruitment, I think we're in big trouble. James is saying pay the 20 for Kalajdzic and try to hijack the Wolves deal. He could score an assist, fits the target man role, and he's 6'7". Is this the guy in France who's playing for Montpellier? There's a team in France who've got a striker. Don't know the name of him, but he's 6'7". He's got a really good goal record. He was in the top sort of 10 for goals last season. And he's in his prime as well. Is that who we're talking about? Ian's talking about 80 million for Richarlison. Well, on the basis of what we've gotten for Gordon, you could say, yeah. Rob's asking about streams. I've got no idea, Rob. I wouldn't expect a stream, to be honest with you. I'm not anticipating one. Stuttgart. Okay, thanks for that, James. Can see it happening. The club appointing Marco Silva halfway through the season and bringing Mitrovic like he did with Richarlison. Mitrovic. This is the thing that gets me down. You look at teams like Brentford. They've got a striker, Ivan Toney. Look at Fulham. You've got Alexander Mitrovic. You've got players in these teams that are not anywhere near the calibre of Everton, and they've got strikers. I can see Dan in the background.
How are you?
65 people watching live. I don't know where are you at the beach?
How are you?
Not too bad. We've got a lot of people here quite happy with the money for.
Take the money and run.
Take the money and run.
Up the fucking toppers.
All right, Dan. He take them. He can't resist coming on. Take the money and run was what he said. I'm just looking at some of these comments. The streams, more and more people are coming on. I want to know what you think. You happy about Anthony Gordon going to Chelsea for 60 million? You happy about Dele Alli leaving, going to Besiktas? Are you happy about potentially meeting Newcastle's bid for Joao Pedro? £30 million. Striker, 3 goals last season. Rob saying if we were interested in Gordon, our fans would say he's not worth more than 25 million. I don't think him being a Liverpool fan makes a difference, Rob. I think that's irrelevant. I think he does love Everton. I think he's come through. I think he's blue through and through. But yeah, I think if you were looking at him at another club, I'd say 25 million is a bit low. I think if you look at players similar, like Morgan Gibbs-White, who, he got goals and assists at the Championship. Well, yeah, I suppose, Rob, you could be right. But we have to trust Chelsea and also Man City's manager, Pep Guardiola, like him. And I imagine they're a lot better judge of character than all of us. And if those two want him, what does that say about the player and his credibility, his credentials, and his potential? I think we've covered everything. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I haven't got an awful lot else to say about the situation. I mean, I think like most of us, were just sat refreshing social media, waiting for something to happen and getting a bit impatient. Obviously, we're playing Fleetwood tonight. Could talk about that for a few minutes. League One opposition away from home. It's got squeaky bum time written all over it. And really, you're looking at making some changes for tonight, potentially. I imagine Michael Keane starts. I imagine Seamus Coleman starts as well. So there's a couple of players coming in. But you're talking about how many changes can we make without really making the team a lot weaker. And up front, we haven't got the options to rotate. So I imagine it's going to be, I don't think Gordon's going to play tonight. Dele Alli is not going to play tonight. So who can come in up front? I don't think he can change anything.
Motion detected.
Bear with me 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. I don't think we can make a change. You're right, Jazzy FC. I don't think we can make a change up front because we haven't got the options available. We've only got Iwobi, Rondon, and Damari Gray. So all three of them are probably going to start. And you're then at the risk of injuries because you're overworking these players and we need them for the weekend. So it scares me, really. And then you look at the midfield, you'd say Onana's going to come in. Alan's going to start. He needs minutes. Could Gbamin start? Do we switch it to 4 at the back, guys? Would you switch it to 4 at the back tonight? Would you keep it as a 5 and make sure everyone can play that system properly? But let me know what your team would be for tonight. I know we did a match preview yesterday. If you haven't already seen it with Yandalf and Dan, go and have a look at it after you've watched this. Everything I was saying, give Tom Cannon a start. Really? Is it going to happen, though? Steve said he's going to bed. He's in the Philippines. Good night, Steve. So, yeah, my team for tonight. I play Onana. I play Alan in midfield. I think Coleman and Keane are going to start. I'd play Pickford because I don't think you rash your goalkeepers. I think if it goes to penalties, Begovic is dreadful at pens. He's a good solid keeper, in terms of what he offers in the game, but on penalties, I don't think he's the best. I'd probably play Pickford still. So Pickford, Vinagre, left wing back, Michael Keane. It's going to be Tarkowski, isn't it? Let's be honest. He's going to play. Seamus Coleman at right back. He's probably going to have to play Gbamin, Alan, and Onana. And then up front, Iwobi, Rondon, and Damari Gray. There's no other options. We've got nothing. Anyway, guys, that's all from me. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. We'll be back soon with more videos. Thank you.